Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into something deeply uncomfortable: the psychological and spiritual barriers that block us from attaining genuine divine knowledge. We're going to map out the human ego, looking at how our daily habits, our craving for comfort, and our deep-seated pride actually sabotage our pursuit of objective truth. It's a fascinating and, pretty sobering look at why we so often choose ignorance over wisdom. So, if you've ever found yourself doom scrolling for an hour just to avoid wrestling with a hard truth, you're absolutely going to want to stick around for this one. All right, let's look at our roadmap. We've got 4 main stops today. First, defining true knowledge. Then we hit the lust of the flesh, followed by the lust of the eyes, and finally, the pride of life. We'll be peeling back the layers of the ego, from our physical distractions all the way down to our deepest arrogance. Let's get into it. Section 1, Defining True Knowledge, the foundation. Because before we can diagnose what's sabotaging us, we really need to understand the goal we're aiming for here. What exactly are we chasing? Here's the key. True knowledge isn't just about collecting facts or winning Bible trivia. It is the rigorous, disciplined labor of pursuing objective reality. It's deep spiritual wisdom. We're talking about the incredibly hard work of understanding reality exactly as it is, rather than how we desperately want it to be. And let's be real, reality can be highly inconvenient, right? It demands change, it exposes our flaws, and it almost never perfectly aligns with our personal preferences. Keep this definition in the back of your mind, because every single barrier we're going to cover today is an act of rebellion against this unflinching pursuit. Moving right along to Section 2, Lust of the Flesh, Distraction and Comfort. This is where we see how our physical desires and just our basic need to be comfortable completely hijack our pursuit of reality. So this barrier breaks down into 3 very modern traps. We've got the dopamine hijack, the prioritization of physical and emotional comfort, and the active avoidance of discomfort. These 3 are constantly running in the background, working together to keep us spiritually stuck in this sort of comfortable, superficial ignorance. Look at this ancient proverb. It literally perfectly describes the modern dopamine hijack. Our pursuit of truth gets derailed by this addictive craving for instant mental gratification and emotional validation. Just think about your social media feeds. The algorithms are specifically designed to spoon-feed us exactly what we already believe, putting us in these cozy little echo chambers. When we face complex realities that require deep, rigorous study, we tend to bypass the hard data. We chase intellectual shortcuts, we self-medicate the anxiety of not knowing by clinging to quick assumptions that instantly make us feel smart, safe, and right. So, here's a gut check question for you. When you're faced with challenging spiritual realities, do you satisfy your craving for cognitive ease with a quick opinion? Or are you actually willing to endure the mental friction required to pursue deep truth? It is so tempting to just retreat into what's comfortable. But true knowledge, that demands we embrace the friction of being challenged and corrected. And that brings us to the trap of physical and emotional comfort. We so often leverage our resources, our energy, and our modern privileges just to insulate ourselves from reality. We treat the pursuit of truth like it's something we can negotiate. Honestly, in our modern world, we can literally buy our way out of spiritual friction. We can just change churches, curate our friend groups, or buy a trendy self-help book that reassures us we're already perfect just the way we are. We're only willing to grow if it doesn't disrupt our lifestyle. And when obedience threatens our material ease, we squander the opportunity, choosing the lazy luxury of ignorance so our routine stays perfectly intact. Then there's the flip side, actively avoiding discomfort. We deliberately run away from objective reality because, frankly, we are terrified of the emotional weight, the conviction, and the grief that truth uncovers. Deep truth forces us to face our own brokenness, and that hurts. It's a painful necessity. So, to avoid that sting, we choose intentional numbness. It makes total sense why we'd prefer the soft anesthesia of superficial ignorance over the really sorrowful process of letting truth completely remodel our hearts. So ask yourself, when a deeper truth threatens your emotional equilibrium, do you just numb out? Or do you allow God to cultivate real maturity in you? This is where pursuing reality gets incredibly costly. You have to be willing to sit in the grief of honest self-examination. All right, on to Section 3, Lust of the Eyes, Perception and Performance. We're shifting the mirror here from our physical comfort to our external perception and optical illusions. This is all about how things look to us, and more importantly, how we look to everyone else. The hard truth is,
We aggressively reject truth when it contradicts our idealized fantasies and our personal plans for self-advancement. We start evaluating our entire lives through this tiny, distorted lens of personal advantage. And when we do that, we completely blind ourselves to divine reality. We end up worshiping our own highly curated visions of success instead of acknowledging the actual state of our souls.
This comparison brilliantly shows the difference between looking the part versus living reality. On the left, it's a cheap public performance. It's flaunting knowledge, weaponizing shallow spiritual buzzwords like decorative ornaments just to secure social status. We've all seen this, right? It's like casually dropping complex theological terms at a dinner party just to sound like the smartest person in the room, while completely missing the heart of the message. But on the right, we see the quiet, hidden practice of genuine integrity. This is taking knowledge, embedding it deep into your character, and acting with true prudence, even when absolutely nobody is watching.
So think about how you handle information. When you learn something profound, is it just a shiny ornament to show off your insight? Do you instantly run to flaunt it or post about it online to build your reputation? Or is it a genuine tool for internal growth that you quietly weave into your character and your everyday life? Finally, we pierce into Section 4, the pride of life, ego and defense. This is it, the deepest, most defensive layer of the human ego. This is where our dignity, our arrogance, and our need for superiority build a massive fortress to keep divine knowledge out. To protect our dignity, we break out the highly sophisticated language, the elaborate self-justifications, and the intense intellectual posturing to shield ourselves from divine correction. When our reputation gets called into question, we mask our pride behind a giant wall of defensive arguments. We're literally speaking over God to maintain our respectability. We use endless philosophical debates as a stalling tactic so we don't have to obey a clear, simple truth. We'd rather obscure reality than suffer the indignity of just admitting, hey, I don't know everything. Instead of submitting, we arrogantly rely on our own assumptions and our own rules as this secure little fortress. We honestly believe we've stored up enough intellectual capital to expertly run our own lives. But here's the catch. That proud self-reliance totally isolates us from divine wisdom. It leaves us completely vulnerable to a sudden, devastating structural collapse of our own making. And it happens simply because we refuse to anchor our minds to absolute reality. Notice how easily theological milestones and accurate facts can be weaponized into a personal, intellectual trophy room. We use truth to build this platform of competitive elevation, puffing ourselves up and looking down on everyone else. It's a toxic spiritual elitism that turns being correct into a cold, hard shield covering up our deep insecurities. And in doing so, it completely bypasses the self-emptying, sacrificial love that genuine truth is actually meant to produce. This is the ultimate exposing question when it comes to the pride of life. Does your theological correctness act as a cold shield of superiority, inflating your ego to look down on people? Or does it genuinely break your pride, driving you to sacrifice your status to serve and build them up in love? Because if your knowledge isn't leading you to love, it is literally just arrogance in disguise. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. We've walked through the dopamine hijack, the fear of discomfort, the obsession with image, and the fortress of our own pride. These are all actively blocking us from reality. Take a moment today to be brutally honest with yourself. Which of these barriers is actively sabotaging your pursuit of objective truth and spiritual wisdom right now? What is your comfort, your image, and your pride truly costing your soul?